Welcome to part 2 of this series of how to mix and how not to mix drums. In part 1, click the link above if you haven't seen that, we talked about drum processing. In this episode, part 2, we're going to be talking about cymbal processing. Let's get into it. And moving on to the hi-hats, how do they sound on their own? They're alright. I don't think we got the mic positioning quite right on this session, but let's see what we can do with it with some plugins. Channel strip again, I've just gone for a generic hi-hat channel strip. Definitely more top end there and a bit more focused. Channel EQ, taking some lows out and some low mids there. And some surgical EQs there as well. Bit of compression. Sounds like a hi-hat. I'm not going to talk about the ride because I think I used it for one hit in the entire song. Overheads. What I would do with overheads is I would take one of the microphones, bring it to the center like this, and then EQ this one on its own. Sounds like a drum kit. Good mix of everything, but let's clean that up a little bit. Straight in with the SSL channel strip. What I'm not going to do on this is gate anything because you want the whole kit sound. And this is a Chris Lord Algae generic overhead template to start with. Instantly, there's quite a lot of compression on that, which I quite like because it really gives some attack to that crash cymbal. There's lots of 10K boosted here, bit of 4.5K boosted by 3 dB there, a little bit of 250 there to bring the snare drum out a bit, I guess. There is a low pass at 70, 50 even. And just taking a bit of lows out there as well. I'm quite happy with how that sounds. Let's add some further EQ though, just to control the sound a bit more. So there's almost a room humming sound there that I've taken out, which we don't like, so that's good. And a bit of a whoo whoo kind of ringing sound there, which is why I've EQ'd that. I've added some compression. I think I added quite a hard compression on this track. Yep, 5:1. That's some heavy compression. I may not have gone that hard if I were to remix this now. But that's really powerful, and what that hard compressor does, if you can hear that, is elongates the crash cymbal sound. And you can hear the compression bringing that back up as that decays. I've got a gain plugin on, but I wouldn't have used that for gain. I would have used that for the phase invert. We'll check the phase on the overheads later. Overheads can very easily get out of phase with the snare drum, so I would have double checked that at some point. So what we do then from the overhead mic to apply it to the next channel, go to our mixer here, and then make sure we're on overhead right, overhead left. So what I've done here using Alt and left click is copied and pasted all the plugins onto the other overhead. Now I've already done that, so I won't do that now, but let's unmute those like that. Pan this one back to the right, solo the left as well, and how do they sound together? Really bright, loads of top end, that's the sound I'm going for, excellent. So the final microphone you should have on every drum kit recording is a room mic. A drum kit is such a living, breathing entity that one drum will make another one resonate, a cymbal will make another one resonate, and they sound as a whole when they're all played together. So rather than just isolating each and every single drum, which for some styles of music that's great, but if you want a bigger, open, more ambient sound, you need to get the room mics to capture the essence of the whole kit. So in addition to the overheads, I've used 3 room mics here. We had an extra SE4400 knocking around and an Aston Origin. I had one of the microphones, the SE I think above my head, and the Origin a little bit kind of towards the front of the bass drum in the center of the kit as well. And what I've done is I've panned those a little bit left and a little bit right for a bit more of a stereo image to try and fill out the gaps in between the kick and snare that are going to be panned directly down the middle and the cymbals that are going to be panned far left and right. They sound like overheads. Let's see how we've treated them. Bit of EQ on both and a bit of compression. I think I've used identical compression again, even though they're different microphones. Because I was panning them either way, I wanted a similar sound out of each of them. Quite bright. I've EQ'd out a lot of the bottom end to clear up any muddy sounds. We used a ribbon mic on this session and it sounds like this. That sounds pretty good, but we need to clean that up a little bit. Straight in with the SSL channel strip, and I've used a generic CLA room template. That sounds wicked. So there's some compression on there. I've obviously not used a gate, and there's a bit of EQ, lots of top end added in there, some bottom end as well. Looking back, that sounds a bit strange to me, so let's see what I've done in the mix. So I've also added in a generic channel EQ here to attenuate the bottom end, take out some annoying resonant frequencies, and also to scoop out some of the top end. Now you might be thinking, oh, but you've put loads of top end in on the channel strip. Why have you then taken it out here? I think I've gone back into the mix and done that at a later date when I've thought possibly the top end of the mix drum-wise is a bit overbearing. This would have been a way to attenuate that. And there's a nice fat effects plug-in here called Fat Crunch. Let's hear how that sounds. So this Fat Crunch is effectively a saturator plugin that adds some thickness to the sound. I think this sounds great. Excellent. Right, so at that point we've mixed all the microphones individually. Let's hear how they sound as a group. It's getting there. Plenty of punch, possibly too much hi-hats and too much top end there, but it sounds like a kit and it's starting to sound good. Let's hear how that sounds in the mix. So in the mix there, I'd say there's too much hi-hats and there's nowhere near enough kick drum and snare drum in relation to the rest of the track. How are we going to fix that? So the logical thing to do would be to go into the mixer here and boost each channel. However, I'm not going to do that because there's a very important step to do before that, which can have the same effect that we're after. Another way around this though is to put the kick drum and snare drum mics on a bus, and then we can treat the bus separately and boost that overall level instead. Why would we want to do this? It's very common to put bass drum, snare drum and hi-hats on a bus so we can EQ all of the drums together globally, compress them, add a bit of reverb maybe to really glue the sound together. Stick around for part 3 where we're talking about buses, samples and master bus processing. Subscribe below so you don't miss that episode. Give that like button a smash. It really does help me on YouTube and I much appreciate it, and I'll see you in part 3.